Welcome to another episode of Transcending the Rabbit Hole. I'm Brandy Anderson, and I'm joined by my very good friends and co-host Annelise and Parker Bess. Today, we're stepping into a question that sits right at the edge of psychology, spirituality, and reality itself. What if the world we experience isn't just neutral or objective, but actively filtered, shaped, and maintained? And what if there are forces, both visible and invisible, that function as gatekeepers, regulating what we see, what we believe, and even what we're capable of perceiving? In this episode, we're exploring the gatekeepers of reality, from ancient texts and archetypes like the Watchers and Archons to modern systems like media, algorithms, and even our own minds. The question isn't just who or what is controlling the system, but how we might be participating in maintaining it. Annelise and Parker, it's a privilege to transcend this rabbit hole with you guys.
Hey, Brandy, so great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
here, Brandy. This is going to be a very fun episode.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that introduction. That's just like tip of the iceberg, and that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for this conversation. But before we jump into the topic at hand, just a quick check-in. How are you guys doing? What's going on in your world?
We're doing well, thank you. I'm really excited that spring is springing. As I shared with you, Brandy, I'm a sunshine girl, and I know you're the moon girl. You're my moon friend. I'm the sunshine friend, and so you thrive in winter. I feel like I thrive in spring, and I have been waiting for spring, and it's here, and it's good. Energies are still weird in the world, of course. Things are still happening. I'm aware of that, but I'm trying to focus on my present moment in my little universe as I try to work through and speak truth about what's going on in the external. Yeah. What
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah, with spring here, I'm doing some new things like planting a garden. It'll be our first go around with that. We
Nice.
started some seedling vegetables and fruits, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now it's just getting it ready for planting
Putting
time.
it in the ground. We're gonna do a raised bed, and we
Ooh,
don't know what we're
nice.
doing, but we wanna try to grow food this year
Yeah,
because it feels like we're gonna need it, and it also it's just a great thing to do and connect with nature more.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how have you been?
Good, good. I like that meme you sent me. It was like, are you far left or far right? It's like, I'm farming.
That's right.
I'm farming.
I'm
Yeah.
farming 'cause our prices are insane right now, so it doesn't hurt to grow a few tomatoes.
Exactly. Yeah.
How are you
Yeah. Well,
doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, like you said, spring. I love spring. I think it's a beautiful time of year. It's just that I'm more of a winter person. I like the
Yeah.
cooler seasons, but I am embracing the warmer days by getting outside more right now. We rescued a sweet pup named Sophie, so I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying taking some evening walks with her. It's helping me to stay in my body
Yeah.
and connected to the earth, and so it's a huge blessing. And I'm happy to report that my hummingbirds have returned, which makes
Yeah.
my heart happy. So yeah,
Aw.
Nice.
yeah.
I've enjoyed your pictures of them. I
Oh,
love
thank you.
hummingbirds.
Yeah,
And
me too.
you've been finishing up your book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm done writing the book, and I've handed it over to my editor. So right now, I'm just waiting for her to get to me. I think I'm the next person in line. So once the editing
Wow.
process is complete, I'll hand it to my publisher, and then the excitement begins. Yeah.
That's awesome.
We can't wait, and I know y'all listening can't wait. This is gonna be such a blessing to the world.
Yes.
Her first
Oh,
book, was as well, so if you haven't read that, Through the Veil, you need to.
oh,
Um,
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That
yes.
means a lot. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm glad to finally be done with the writing process. So I'm kind of in a liminal space.
That's nice.
That's
Yeah,
nice. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, yeah. Well, so our topic, gatekeepers of reality, when we think about gatekeepers of reality of the matrix, it's easy to maybe want to narrow it down to one thing, whether it be one person, one group of people, or one political party. That's what the binary mind wants to do. Like, it wants to identify an enemy and just fight against it, which ironically is one of the best ways to stay trapped in the matrix. But a gatekeeper is anything that filters perception. And when we think of it that way, we begin to see why it's so hard to free ourselves from the matrix. Our perception is filtered through so many things. From the moment that we're born, our perception is being shaped by family, culture, our education, religion, The media, I mean, even our own psychology is shaping our perception. And I've come to see it less like a single system and more like a hierarchy, like a pyramid, even. So, not necessarily with one like villain on top, but with layers, like where each level shapes the one beneath it. And at the base, you have the everyday conditioning, like the family patterns and the social norms. And above that, you have the larger systems like the political, economical structures. And then above that, you have like the collective beliefs, the ideologies. So basically, I guess what I'm saying is I've come to realize that I'm caught in a cosmic pyramid scheme. So
Oh, yeah.
how do you guys see it? When we talk about gatekeepers of reality, how would you maybe articulate that?
I think the pyramid scheme, like you were just, talking about for the whole world is true. I mean, we could see it every single day with just first we'll start with just people and their dualistic beliefs, like you were saying, everybody's that has pretty much chosen a side of Republican or Democrat or hate to say, races or whatever, people always need an enemy to fight.
Uh-huh.
And so that's like your baseline. And then above that, you have your controllers of knowledge and power, which would be like secret societies, the establishments. And above that, you have what you would call like your dark secret societies, people who influence the bottom tier of like, we'll say Freemasonry. Freemasonry first through third degree it's about like all the ancient initiate rites and all that kind of thing. It's not anything dark at that moment, but that dark secret society class that you get into with like the Illuminati and the upper Masons, um, that's above the lower class and above the media class. And above that, there's more and more until you get to the very top of like principalities and gatekeepers of like, and we'll talk about this later, but there are like a top group of entities or spirits or we're going to get into all of it. But I totally believe the pyramid scheme is, you're right on with that, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we live in like an upside down pyramid. This is the gatekeepers term. I think it can include too, like our cultural norms and our emotional conditioning, like you were saying, like how we grow up in our families, our subconscious beliefs. I've been learning more and more this past year in particular how much our beliefs shape our reality. Um, and just being able to train humanity to believe certain things will shape reality. They will shape their own reality through the beliefs they've been given. And so I've realized, people, they're not locked in cages, but they're taught to guard the door themselves.
Hmm.
They they have the key. We all have the keys out, but you're not taught that. And so I'm very excited for this discussion.
Yeah, I love how you said that because our own internal narrative is a huge gatekeeper. So we are, in a way, our biggest gatekeeper, our own selves, our own psyche,
Yeah.
and is often handed to us by previous generations. Like we don't even know it's a narrative;
Yeah.
we just think it's the truth, which is why it's so captivating. And even though there are like external gatekeepers, people and even entities, like you were saying, Parker, that are controlling the collective narrative, our work is always with our internal personal narrative first. I mean,
Uh-huh.
we can only be controlled if we buy into the script. And we do all buy into it from infancy.
Yeah.
So waking up is just about becoming aware of that conditioning and then dropping that narrative.
Uh-huh.
But let's take it way back to the ancient gatekeepers. Parker, maybe you want to fill us
Yeah.
in uh, on who the Watchers are and how they play into this conversation?
Yeah, for sure. The Watchers, they're, best known from the Book of Enoch. Um, it was one of those books that was left out of the Bible, but has yet, you know, resurfaced and become super duper famous. Um, for just all the backdrop knowledge on the Watchers and what they pretty much were, and these Watchers in the Book of Enoch, they came down and taught humanity the art of beautification, the art of war, how to make swords, how to just really build a civilization, to be honest. I mean, they taught the things that people would say corrupted humanity or maybe just helped humanity evolve into civilizations. Um, with the Watchers too, they in the Book of Enoch came down, or maybe came into this reality and had children with the women in the Book of Enoch and produced the Nephilim, which were the giants of that time. And that's where we get the whole story of the Nephilim and how, like, in the Bible and all of that, the flood came and wiped out all these huge giants. Well, that was from the Book of Enoch and the Watchers. And since then, though, I feel like there are two different sets of Watchers. I think there's a bad set of Watchers who did that, who, you know, they broke like a crown vow. Like, you could look at it through an alien lens of you don't mess with humanity as they're evolving, or a biblical lens of you don't do that to humanity. You don't go down there and do that. So that's about, that's about what the Watchers are, I think. And I think some didn't do that and some did do that.
Mhm.
And I'll hand it over to whoever's next.
I think that's a great explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think biblically they're called the fallen angels. In the Bible that we have canonized, it's the fallen angels, the Watchers. Um, but if you go back even further from the Bible to the ancient Sumerian tablets, um, they're called the Anunnaki. And there is a good group, quote, quote, good group and a bad group, one who is for humanity and one who is not. And that's where you get your Yahweh and Satan narrative in the Old Testament, representative of these dark and light forces. In the Sumerian tablets, they're called Enki and Enlil. And I think it was their peoples, it was their the ones they control that really we would be calling the Watchers. They would be above these Watchers in a way. Um, but we also have a name for them in the ancient Christian text, in the Nag Hammadi. In the Gnostic text, they're called the Archons, and you mentioned that, Brandy.
Hmm.
And they're not creators of the soul or of the world, but they're regulators of the system that they set up. They are beneath the all and have tricked humanity into thinking that they are the boss and that they do run the world and that there's no way around it. But really they're going for the light of God in all of us. Just by changing our perception and just by manipulating our beliefs, they can create the world they want to be in. So to me, it's all the same thing. The Watchers, there's just a lot of names for them throughout
Hmm.
history. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I kind of distinguish between the Watchers and the Archons. I see the Watchers more as like interdimensional beings that actually could physically manifest in our realm and interact with and interbreed with human women. You mentioned that it's in the Book of Enoch, and in Genesis 6 in our Bible in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. The sons of God bred with the daughters of men, we're told, and created that race of giants. So it's actually in our Bibles. It's just it's barely mentioned. And
Yeah,
then,
it's like hardly touched upon.
yeah, it's just it's like barely mentioned it and then moving right along and no more mention. But, we have like you said, the Nephilim, they're the production of the Watchers and human women, and they were giants. And so that's what the flood was all about. Yeah, they were supposed to watch over humanity without intermingling, but then some of them didn't keep their proper place and they abandoned their roles and rebelled. And Jude and Peter both mention this, like it's just glossed over in church for the most part. But both of them are saying that these rebel angels were cast into the abyss and they're held in chains and gloomy darkness until judgment because of their rebellion. And I also think that it's interesting that Paul told Corinthian women to keep their heads covered because of the angels. I mean, that really is kind of nonsensical unless you understand that he was aware of the intermingling of these angels with human women, which angel just means messenger, and these Watchers are messengers from another realm. Yeah, I think when we read these ancient texts, and we read about these things, it's easy to just think, well, this stuff happened way back then, so it's not really relevant to our lives today. But Watchers still exist, and they still
Yeah.
watch over humanity, right, Parker?
Yeah, I totally think that. I totally think they're still here watching over humanity. I mean, why wouldn't they be if what is 2,000 years to a Watcher, or to an interdimensional being compared to, us? Like 2,000 years is nothing compared to So of course they would be here, still
Yeah.
watching this.
I see
Yeah.
them like as like you were saying, 2 different groups though, like the watchers that are watching over humanity in uh, that nice sense of the word, and then the watchers who maybe are like the Nephilim type watchers, the fallen ones, the ones
Mm.
um,
Who came down?
who chose not to be protectors of humanity, but instead to use humanity. And there's a lot of names we can, but we're all trying to point at the same thing.
Mhm.
These beings or entities or spiritual forms at the highest level who control our perception and our reality and keep us in this sense of just absolute forgetting who we are and whose we are
Yeah.
and what our power is.
I think what
Yeah.
you said about the Anunnaki, I think it goes back to that for sure.
I
I
do
mean,
too.
when we talk about like Enlil and gosh,
Inky.
Inky and
Yeah.
Enlil. Enlil's real name, or what they called him in the tablets, was Enlil, Lord Satan, like Satan or something like that, of Eden, which means like the ruler of Eden, going back
Mm.
to that ancient Canaanite language. But like Satan is different than Satan, but it's all kind of like moving into like the same kind of language. I
Mm.
always thought that was pretty interesting. I heard that on like Gaia or something. I looked it up, and sure enough, it was
Huh.
true. So
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting when we mentioned Satan so much, and it's like, well, that dude who's like supposedly Yahweh's real name is like Enlil, Lord Satan of Eden.
Hmm.
So that's pretty interesting.
That is interesting. I didn't know that.
Hmm.
This is just for people listening. This is like where it comes in. I think why it's so important to read texts older than the Bible that also tell our creation story. You're not going against God if you do that. Like, that's actually really smart to do. And when you do it, you get to connect the dots and see who really is God and who really isn't.
Mm. Yeah. And I think there are a lot of, I mean, we were talking about the watchers, but I think there are a lot of different beings that are involved in this, some that we don't even know about, perhaps.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think the universe is just too vast to narrow it down to like, it was just this one group or it was just these watchers. I think the watchers, are supposed to watch over humanity in a helpful way, and some just sort of rebelled, is what happened. Just like,
yeah,
humans can rebel, so can interdimensional beings. It doesn't mean all watchers are bad. Um, but yeah, I think it does go back to the Anunnaki, and I think that's what they're pretty much the same. And then Annelise, you mentioned the Archons, which I think that is also a type of gatekeeper, but in my way of understanding, they're a little different than the Watchers. Maybe because in Gnostic thought, archon just really just means ruler. So they rule over. I see them as not like watching in an intermediary type sense, but as in setting the parameters for the physical universe. I guess that may be a way to say it. Like, I think some of what Paul was referring to when he mentioned principalities, powers, and the rulers in the heavens, I think maybe they are forces that maintain the illusion. I think he was maybe speaking of what the Gnostics would call the archons, and they keep consciousness identified with that material layer. And I
Yeah.
don't think the Watchers necessarily were trying to keep humanity, identified with the material realm, but I definitely think the archons do. But the way that I understand them is that they're not so much external beings, but intelligences that are embedded into the system itself that kind of keep reality bounded and predictable. I could be wrong about that. That's just sort of how I have understood it as I've read about it. Like, the way that I see the archons is like they are the laws of material existence itself, like they're linked to time and structure, all the things that keep us bound to the world of form. I think of them as archetypes, particularly associated with like planetary spheres. So, in that sense, like they're cosmic rulers or archetypal forces associated with like astrological rhythms. And this is what I would say karmic cycles are. Like, it's the conditioning that's really driving our lives. And so the planets represent certain patterns and influences, and the archons are governing. They're the governing principles behind those forces. Like, Saturn is associated with limitation and structure. Mars is associated with aggression or assertion. Venus is attraction. Mercury rules thought, language, and so on. Like, those who know astrology see the correlation immediately. And so archons are typically thought of as those who keep us trapped or imprisoned here on earth. But I think it's important to note that they don't trap us by force. Like, we have to identify with their system to be trapped. And archons are the forces that bind consciousness to form because they maintain the structure of the 3D reality. And when we're unconscious, that structure does feel like a prison, though, but it's really just a container that we have chosen. So basically, when you believe you are the body and the ego and the social role, you're automatically imprisoned. The cell is consciousness itself. So yeah, anyway, I'll see what you guys think about that.
I think we're saying the same thing in different ways. Like, I think there's a lot of words we can use to point at the suppressors of the light of God. And to me, it's the watchers that fell. You could look at them as the archons. But yeah, like you said, it could just be the natural forces of the rhythm of life that are the archons to our ego, But in the Pistis Sophia, it's a book I just adore, and I read it every night. And it's the whole story of how the light of God fell into matter and what it did to that light of God. And they call her Sophia. And I know you know this, Brandy, but just for the listeners, in that book, the archons suppress her and make her life so difficult. There's nothing she can do about it, but she keeps turning to the light and saying, I know who I am. I know I'm of the light, and I know you're going to rescue me. Throw these archons off of me. In the Psalms, that's David's Psalms. The Psalms and Pistis Sophia reflect each other, mirror images. So they're the same thing. And the archons, whatever they are, they're attacking, they are suppressing, they are to keep you down. I think like simplistic terms would be demons. Like, but we're just like, that phrase about it's all just fingers pointing at the moon, like using a word like God. I feel like using a word like archons doing the same thing. It's not the good guys, but it's also not like entities. It's the holders of reality, but the ones that are against the reality that is love. And I think it's just important to note for people listening, we here, like at the Rabbit Hole, we do believe in God, but God is not a man on a cloud in the sky like a Zeus. God is the source of all life and all reality. God is the light in which we see, the ground of being. But everything that was produced from God is also a creation of God's. And so we're talking about a lot of different powerful beings in the grand bubble of the heavens and of God. So don't let this this gibberish of ours lose you. Stick with us, because we're going to get into why this is applicable to, our everyday life, because the archons are why you're miserable. They are. So yes,
Yeah.
I'll hand it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think the archons are, what y'all have been saying. I think it's a like a spiritual type force, just like a demon type force, but kind of just also just yeah, I mean, I guess it would be like a demon type thing where it's spiritual in a sense, but they're with it enough to know what what they need to do to influence certain things or keep things hidden or stuff like that. But you know, I uh I really think there's a hierarchy when it comes to the good and the bad, and the hierarchy on the bad would be like the archons right below, like whatever you want to call the top person on the bad, Satan, the devil. These archons, their mission from what, the Gnostic point of view and just throughout, I guess, esoteric wisdom is, they're here to maintain the matrix and they're here to not allow it to break because that's how they get their power is through Loosh. We had an episode on that. And, that's their main goal is to just keep everybody asleep and locked in and status quo for the most part,
But they do it
little
through
advancements here and there.
they do it through your own power, because
Yes.
nothing can be done against us. We
Yeah,
are the
right.
light of God. Nothing
Right.
can be done without our permission, really. And they do it through manipulation of your mind and your perception and your beliefs, so you manifest your own hell. And
Right.
and that's what we're all in. And
Yeah.
anytime you feel suffering or you feel hellish, you've lost the correct perception. And that's something that, A Course in Miracles talks a ton about. And we love our Course in Miracles. And for those who don't know that, what that is, go look into it. But it's a great pair with your Bible. If you're somebody who is, whether you're in church, deconstructing, out of church, never been to church, doesn't matter. It's great, especially coming through like a Western Christian lens. And most of our brains over here have been programmed like that. It's very helpful for that and undoing what the archons have done to your mind. Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
definitely want to say this. Like from what Annalise said, like I think when I say they influence people, that's what I mean. Like a lot of people don't seem to understand like the propaganda that's enforced on them like every single day of their life, whether it be political, religious, anything looking to divide you with source or with between your neighbor, all that kind of stuff is archon stuff. So that's what I mean by like they're in your life, but you just don't necessarily label that as the archon, but that's what it is. It's a force there to divide you from your
Mm.
greatest life path or from your wife or from your neighbor or from your kids or whatever. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it is. A division from love, pretty much.
Yes. And it is so pervasive, people don't realize it because it is the prevailing narrative. It's like
Yeah.
the water we're all swimming in. And
Mhm.
so, it doesn't feel demonic. It doesn't feel divisive. It just feels like truth, like reality. And that's why I say it's like these forces that kind of manipulate and control reality and add the structure. That's what we find ourselves in when we incarnate. And so, yeah, they are some sort of a psychic phenomenon or some sort of force. I think it's hard to put language on these things.
Yeah.
I see them as
Yeah.
the matrix grid. Like
Yeah.
the archons are the matrix grid. They
Yeah.
are what keeps us held in this fake world. And the reason we feel so miserable on the inside, even though people don't say they do, I know they do. The reason we feel that way is because we're living in this archonic grid that's opposite of how spirit was designed to live.
Yeah. I
But
definitely think they set the parameters for the
yeah,
world we find ourselves in.
they're the Mr. Smiths of the movie The Matrix.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we could say there are individual entities like Watchers or even the Demiurge, which that would be like the one ruling over the Archons, right? Like the Demiurge
Yeah.
was the creator, the ignorant creator in Gnostic thought. Or even reptilian beings. I'm sure most people have
Yep.
heard of that from a higher dimension who are gatekeeping reality. Through other sources like archons or even human beings who have authority in this world.
Mhm.
I mean, clearly there are people who are gatekeepers too, and pretty much anyone in authority is a gatekeeper who feeds the systems in some way.
Yeah.
But I would say more powerful than any one person or any entity are the collective energetic gatekeepers, what's known as egregores. And an egregore is just a psychic entity created by collective belief. Like, think institutions, religions, economic systems, ideologies. And in Jungian psychology, this would just be a collective complex. But they're powerful. They're probably the most powerful gatekeeper. They define what is true, what's acceptable, what's real in the world. And they are what is filtering our perception and keeping us stuck. Not through force, like we've been saying, but through our own participation and identification. It is the prevailing narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Things like religion, things
Yes,
like
yes.
your national identity, like money, like social status, um, just the cultural definitions of success and what is normal. Um, it's all a bunch of lies, and it's
Yeah.
crazy when you wake up to that, and it's really depressing when you wake up to that because um, people have spent their whole lives building upon these lies that they were told was reality, was
Mm.
truth. And so to tell somebody, sorry, that wasn't, is really hard to hear, but it's necessary to get out of the prison cell,
Mhm.
to open the cage door. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, like we're saying, with it could be institutions, it could be like you have all your hopes and dreams in money or maybe in banking or day trading or whatever, that's all you care about. That's something. You're giving all your power away to that. Or it could
Yeah.
be religion. Everybody has a religion that's right. Everybody's religion is right to them. So, that's a big one. And another big one with this war going on is countries. Now,
Mm.
listen. I'm kind of split on it because I kind of think like, yeah, the USA. We pay taxes here, but at the same time, I think about like, I mean, is it choosing a side? I mean, are we choosing sides at this point? With that kind of thing. But
Now you're either choosing love or fear.
That's it.
yeah,
There's not really any more sides than that.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-mm.
So
There are
you
no
know,
others,
There
not
are no
really.
other sides. No, they're
so
not.
yeah, so see, that's another one.
But
And
our
Yeah,
little country boundary lines makes you think,
that's
you gotta
right.
choose your team.
yeah,
That's
Mhm.
this is humanity. This isn't yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's exactly right. So everybody's picking a side, like we said at the beginning, whether you really know it or not. And it's like they just said, love or fear, not
right.
hate, but fear. And I guess you get to choose that. But the egregore, um, everybody's got it, and it does manifest into like a actual thing because when you have millions of people or billions of people giving all of their power and energy to something, that something is going to turn into something. Like it's not just going into empty space. Like it's going into what you could look at it like a vessel or something and into like a
Mhm.
you're just feeding it. You're feeding this system that's creating itself pretty much. And at the end of that, you have this egregore that is true to you in your mind and the limitations you set, the cage you put around yourself
Yeah.
because of what the egregore tells you is right.
Right. Takes on a life of its own.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
becomes like a cosmic force, but it's, our collective involvement and participation is what gives it life. So we could collectively withdraw our attention from it,
Mhm.
our energy from it. But it has become so powerful that it's almost impossible to do so. It's just this huge beastly machine.
Yeah.
And as I was preparing for this episode, I was thinking about the egregore that we call school. Like, I am a nerd and, I love to learn, but school has always been off-putting to me, and I just hated every second of it from
Mhm.
kindergarten through college. I
Me too.
absolutely detested it. And it's because it's not about learning in an expansive way. It doesn't bring us into our highest path. It's about teaching us how to conform, how to relate to authority, time, structure, all of that stuff. So it's very stifling and it sucks the life out of little kids. It teaches them how to submit to external authority, and it causes them to suppress their
Mhm.
inner knowing. And I always
Mhm.
thought something was wrong with me because I've had this rebellious streak when it comes to authority. Like something in me just cannot abide with mindless compliance. Like I cannot. And so which, this why I never really got too far in this world, to be honest, because of that tension. And conformity equals prosperity, and I just have trouble with conformity. I just can't do it. So for years I thought, well, that it was a curse, and in many ways it is. It doesn't make life easier, that's for sure. But recently I was thinking about how it's also a bit of a blessing in disguise, to be sure, because as the systems are finally beginning to be exposed, I'm really not too shaken up about it. I'm like, let it all come tumbling down. Like,
Mhm.
I'm just not really invested in a lot of the structures that people get so enamored by.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I believe that, people who are really identified with the systems, climbing the ladders, achieving. Maybe I should put it this way: people who are achieving, people who have achieved, and feel really comfortable and secure in these systems, it will be especially painful for the
Mhm.
collapse of all of that to come tumbling down.
Mhm. I'm with you. I want it to come down
Yeah.
because they've always felt so wrong. I think these things like the school example, I think school can be a great thing, can be wonderful, but when school stops being a tool to teach and becomes just this system of unquestioned truth,
Mhm.
that's when now it's this egregore that uh, controls children and then controls workers as they're, becoming little worker bees for the system. But
Yeah.
it could be something great. It could be a place of shared learning and letting children guide their own education and their own interests and supporting them in that. And that's something I think will come along in the new earth. And I really do believe that. Like, we're going to see all the systems change once the old stuff crumbles. Um, these things can be a good thing, but under these archons, it's the opposite. It's the upside down. So school
Mhm.
becomes like a prison and a hindrance to learning sometimes, a lot of times, rather than what it should be. Um, and yeah, I'm like you. I'm fine for it to come down. Like media, Hollywood, money, government, entertainment, poisonous food industry, poisonous frequency wars upon us, poisonous music in our ears, everything. It's all wrong for us. So it's time to come down. And I'm like you. I'm going to throw a party when it comes down, and we're going to build the new earth after that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, that sounds fun. Um,
it's a
Yes.
good
I'll be
time.
there.
but yeah, I mean, I agree to a point. I think I did not like school, like you were saying, because it
Yeah.
was a lot of forced
Stifling.
memory. Yeah, and I'm a creative person, in designing things, and I, I just couldn't ever just sit there and look at something and be told memorize this, or
Yeah.
else you'll fail. So
Yeah.
that's what I have to say about myself with that. But I do think, like, back in like Pythagoras and like the ancient, like the golden age, where they were learning all the time, but they were learning like real things, and they were learning the things that will help society grow and to grow your mind, for God's sakes. I mean, these people they were learning to learn, and they love to learn because they was
Yeah.
feeding their brain. But now, ever since John D. Rockefeller came in and took over the whole entire education system, there's a quote that he says that is literally, we're going to control the, now this isn't the exact quote, but this is what he said, this is what he said. Uh, you know, we're going to take over the educational system. I want a nation of workers and not a nation of thinkers.
Mhm.
And you look at the educational system, and that's what that is. It's just a nation, or a working class of people who can follow demands and follow instructions. Don't talk back. Don't question. Just, do what I tell you to do, and you'll move on to the next grade if you can memorize. So
Yeah.
It
They're
makes
programming you. They're not teaching you
exactly.
anything for your own betterment. It's programming you to conform to their
Yeah,
system.
That's
Yeah.
right.
exactly. And this turned it into an egregore in that sense. But I don't think it was always that way. But I think now, since
Yeah.
Rockefeller,
Yeah.
his old evil ass.
It, it makes me think of our son who has been homeschooled up until this point. Now he's in second grade in a public school that is a wonderful public school. Um, but he's having to learn that, like, why do I have to be on this certain controlled behavior when I'm around the school people, but when I come home, I can do this. And I've had to tell him, because that's a system, and in their system, you have to play by their rules. So in his class, he has a color system, green, yellow, red, and you get your color pulled or changed, and then he'll go home with it in his calendar. What color did he get today? And that has just torn him up, learning to operate to get the right color.
Mhm.
So it could be anything. Like some kid stomped on his foot yesterday. He stomped on the kid's foot back. They both get their color moved.
Mhm.
I kind of get that. The teacher needs like some discipline in there, but other things, not so much. Other things, it's like
You drank from your water
you
bottle?
drank from your water bottle without asking. You spoke during lunch.
Right.
You walked to get a tissue without uh, a note from home. Just things like that. And so I've had to sit him down and tell him, this system, all due respect to teachers, but this system only matters to your teacher. This little color system it works for her. Okay. But I don't want you to assign your worth to that. I don't want you to assign your value to that. 'Cause he was coming home getting yellow, thinking he's just the worst, and teaching him, 'cause he's a kid who's in between the old world and the new world. And a lot of our children right now are, and they don't have a lot of guidance, and they're going to need it because they're the split. Um, so just teaching him that you are in a system that isn't real life. Play by the rules so that you can have fun with your friends, and then come home and you can be in the real world, you know? And I tell him one day, I would love it if you'd like to homeschool again and you could learn all the things, anything you want. But unfortunately, it's without all the friends, and kids love to be with their friends. So it's just interesting to me to see him as a new consciousness here on earth, learning these egregores and coming home and saying, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah.
He even said to me, "Hey, like nobody in my class thinks aliens are real. What's wrong with them?" You know? And I had to tell him, "Yeah, it's crazy, but we're living in a time where there's still a large part of the population that is under this illusion that we're the only ones out here, and they'll make fun of those who know better." And he's like, "Wow, that's dumb." So it's a gift to get to watch this whole process unfolding in him, all that to say.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to know to teach him that these systems are not, quote, quote, reality. Because
Yeah.
I grew up where they were, of course, quote, quote,
Mhm.
reality. And it made me very sick, very,
Yeah.
very sick in ways that I've had to work very hard to undo, as have all of us.
Yeah. It's very fear-based, all of it. It's like do the right thing or you'll get a bad grade or you'll get failed or you'll get a mark or, whatever. Some sort of there's always that reprimanding of not conforming of anytime you don't conform you get reprimanded in some way. And so it creates a lot of anxiety and tension in very young children, which is unhealthy. I remember as a child being super anxious about school.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't about the learning part. I mean, I could make the grades. That wasn't it. It's the whole structure, the social
Mhm.
aspect of it, just the way that you're treated, the way that you're expected to perform.
Yeah.
Like you said, not, taking a drink out of your water bottle and you get, a mark or whatever, like not being able to go sharpen your pencil without
Yes.
asking permission. And it's just, I mean, I don't know. It's just life sucking. And all of our systems are built like that. I mean, the
Yeah.
religious system, everything. And if you don't play by the rules, you do not prosper. You do not climb the ladder. You're not the one to be put forth for a promotion or whatever. You have to plug into the system and play by those rules, or you just don't get anywhere in this life. Um,
That's right.
yeah, all of the systems are designed for compliance and conformity in some way. The entire world is telling you to outsource your authority.
Mhm.
Trust the experts. Don't question the powers that be. Just be a good little drone and do what you're told.
Mhm.
And these systems, they don't really need a villain, proper to enforce them because they're self-perpetuating. Like
Yeah.
they're just feedback loops. People willingly participate because it's rewarding, right? It feels safe. It's familiar.
It's the American
Um,
dream.
that's right. It is. It's the American dream. It's the way to climb those ladders and obtain all those things in life and the things that most people desperately want. So they're eager to do the things they need to do, jump through all of the hoops to make that happen. And so we help stabilize the matrix through our participation. That's the whole point. It's this feedback loop. It's not easy to disentangle ourselves from all those systems. It means risking our belonging, our livelihood, and our very lives, even in some cases. I mean, just look at what happened to Jesus. I mean, he
Mm.
spoke truth to power and he refused to participate and they crucified him. In fact, two systems that hated each other, the Roman political system and the Jewish religious system, teamed up to silence him. So it can be costly to push against the prevailing narrative.
Absolutely. And then to see, I know I say this often, but that those two systems took the one little shred of truth we had gotten in a long time and used it to reinforce the strength of the narrative of this false matrix. Used it to their advantage, not the truth that it was, because Jesus didn't come to start a religion of control and sacrifice and all of those, money words you hear at church. He just came
Yeah.
with the pure truth of how to free yourself from this prison.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things that's been gate kept ever, which is he came to free you from yourself pretty much he came to point out that God is within you. He even says that, and that's what church is going to say that to you? Seriously. You want to talk about gatekeepers? Go ask your church where God lives. They're probably going to say in their building. God lives in your heart, dude. So, you know, we could point out gatekeeping right now. That's what that is for
Yeah.
sure.
I think religion is one of the most powerful and dangerous egregores out there. I mean, because it keeps people in submission under the guise of something holy. So it's harder to buck a system that you think was put in place by God. And and you add in the fear of burning eternally in a lake of fire, and you
Yeah.
got yourself a pretty effective egregore. So, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I think that religion is the biggest impediment to genuine awakening, and Jesus was pointing against that. The whole way. It wasn't
Yeah.
about, Jesus. It's not about Jesus died for your sins, so you're going to go to heaven when you die if you believe the right things conceptually. No, it's about living the way that Jesus lived. He said, take up your cross and follow me. And Jesus, his path leads out of the matrix. So it's about pushing against, not in a combative sense, but in, an inner authority sense, pushing against those systems that keep people confined. It's about answering all of that fear and conformity and structure of the systems with love, with equanimity and love. And so, yeah, it definitely it flies in the face of everything that we're taught to do from childhood on.
Yeah. And the same system, the same egregore that he was preaching against is the one that killed him.
Oh, yeah.
And started his religion.
And then started
Quote,
his
quote,
religion after that.
His religion.
Yeah.
No, it started a religion after him.
Now, I will say this,
Mixed with stuff.
because I know we spit a lot of truth on that, but coming from the background of a religious, I've told everybody I was raised Southern Baptist. That was my life. I was a minister up until about 30 years old. It was really hard to leave that. That was the biggest fear component. But it wasn't until I sat down with our pastors and told them, like, I have had a spiritual awakening, and this is what that looks like. This is what that means. And I have to go now. And that was so scary. But it wasn't until I did that I was set free, and that my inner spiritual world could actually blossom outside of the confines of their control and what they say the Bible means, because my inner Holy Spirit knew much better. And I had to listen to that, and I was sick until I listened to that. And so, like, I understand it's very scary to have a spiritual awakening, especially as a Christian, as a very serious Christian. It can really rock your world, but that's the point. It has to rock your world because your world's not real. And Jesus told us the same thing. So it's all for the good. It really is.
And that's where, Christ consciousness comes into play, I mean, what Jesus taught is literally Christ consciousness, and it's like what the word says. It's Christ's message coming to expand your consciousness, in a sense that it's the way that Jesus was teaching. It's the way that Jesus was teaching you to leave the matrix system to where you think on your own and you do all the things that Jesus said, because like Brandy said, it takes you out of the system. It takes you out of worshiping the egregore, in that sense. It's just very important to understand like what he was saying. That's what one of our clips was this past week or two was about how, you can just take everything in the Bible and just do the words in red, and that's what you really need to focus on. And some people got all pissy about it, but you know what? That's exactly what we're saying right now. Like, Jesus came to teach a message that most people don't even know he came to teach, which is crazy,
And the words in red are all that's there in the canonized Bible. So when I say, bet your bottom dollar on the words in red, I'm not saying that's all Jesus ever said and there's no more to it. I'm saying that's where the truth is. And then keep following that. There's more to it. Like in the Nag Hammadi, like in A Course in Miracles. That is pure Christ spirit, that Course in Miracles. There's more of Jesus, Yeshua actually, out there. Yeah. Also, the egregore that women shouldn't speak on faith matters, that one did me in this week. On that same video, there were people who commented, don't ever listen to a woman. Make her be quiet. This is why women shouldn't speak in church. This is what the religious egregore is still spitting in 2026, telling me I need to shut my mouth because I'm a woman when I'm out here sharing Christ with people, the real deal, not the system of the church. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's a lot on people like us to help bring down these things, but it's really important. And I'm glad we're doing it.
Yeah. That was well said. And I like what you said about the words in red because Jesus is perfect theology. I would say any theology that pushes against what Jesus actually lived and taught. That's the issue because there's a lot of theology out there that causes people to literally kill themselves. And
Hmm.
so Jesus said you will know them by their fruit. So if the fruit of your theology, if the fruit of what you're peddling is actually, harming people, if it's diminishing people, if it's, keeping people from their highest life path, if it's causing people to want to take their own life, then yeah, it's definitely not of God, and it's certainly not what Jesus taught. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things where the egregore is huge, and
Mhm.
it's the religious egregore has a lot of denominations. So there are a lot of different tentacles
Yeah,
coming
That's
off
right.
of
yeah,
that one big egregore. So yeah, I think the whole thing needs to come tumbling down. I don't, it's not so much about reform as just do away with that whole system, that whole
yeah,
line of thinking, and yeah, take it back to
yeah,
what Jesus lived and taught.
yeah, and it's those archonic forces that even established the egregore we're talking about, this religious egregore. They had such a hand in making religion for the very purpose of distracting all people who have a loving, light soul, who want to put it somewhere, their attention somewhere good and honest and true. They
Yeah.
swiped them all up in religion. And when people talk about the Antichrist, I really wonder, what is Antichrist? It's
Huh?
to tell everyone they're separate from God and that they have no power within. It's external. That's
Mhm.
Antichrist. And that's what our
Yeah.
whole religious system is built upon. So a lot needs to happen.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, even in the Bible it says many antichrist have come into the world. So it's even back then it was the same thing. It was the religious, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the antichrist. Um yeah.
I told Parker, I see in this whole new earth vision of mine that, quote, church will just be people of community who live and love like Christ and who serve others together, who come together to serve. That's one thing that I will say church does really well, at least in our area, is serve the community. And that's something that I think needs to stick. Just loving others, serving others, and just being with your community. That's church.
Mm.
That's church.
Without looking for something.
Without looking for something.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Or
Yeah, I love that.
without needing anybody to be a certain way in order to be
Mm.
there or to
Right.
serve. If you have a loving heart, you want to serve your community, that's what Jesus did. That's church. Church
Mhm.
is not an institution that rules your life and your subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah, and I think also, the goal is not to fight against the gatekeepers. Like once you see the gatekeeping, because it is so pervasive, and the natural response is often anger. It's like that these people are stifling me. They have been lied to since I was a child, and I'm stuck in this matrix. And how do I get out? But it's really just to become aware that it's not about fighting against, but becoming aware of those gatekeepers. And our way out is through clear seeing. So it's about discernment and choosing the highest path, even if it means not being popular
Yeah.
or promoted by the world's standards. And I said this earlier, but it's worth repeating. The most formidable gatekeeper is always that inner gatekeeper, the internal narrative that keeps you bound to a particular cycle of conformity and compliance. And our real work is within ourselves, first and foremost. Without self awareness and inner integration, we're just out there fighting evil with evil, essentially. And we can't expect to be free from the external matrix until we free ourselves from that internal matrix. We have to untwist all those knots within ourselves so that we can engage the world around us with sovereignty and equanimity. It does us very little good to recognize the reptilian agenda out there if we're still operating out of a reptilian mindset within. And I think that's what Jesus meant when he said, why do you notice the speck in your neighbor's eye, but you don't notice the log in your own eye? So we have to first remove the log in our own eye so that we can see clearly to help our neighbor with the speck in their eye. We can help no one as long as we have this log in our eye. So yeah, that
It's very helpful and encouraging. Thank you. I think I see a
Yeah.
lot of that. People are like, okay, well, I'm awake. Now what? Because this sucks.
Yeah.
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 I saw this meme this week and it was a cartoon man. I sent it to you, I think. And he's got nurses around him. And he says, this escape room sucks. And they
Yeah.
say, once again, sir, this is planet Earth.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
it's very tempting to see Earth like that after awakening as this place to escape. I mean, that's my own personal battle too,
Mhm.
oftentimes. Um, but then I go back to things like A Course in Miracles and Jesus's teachings and just my own inner knowing that there's so much more out there than what we're told is reality here. And I know it's not pretty to say everything's a lie, everything you've been taught is a lie, but it kind of is. But that's kind of freeing. I mean, that's kind of freeing because what we've been taught to me is just so limiting and
Mm.
so makes us so small. And we're not small. We're the light of God in form. And we need to be freed so that we can live and enjoy life. One thing I just want to offer, I guess, as we close, is something from A Course in Miracles. And we've talked a little bit about this, about perception and about projection. Projecting is where you put your thoughts on others. Like you think, because I think this, that's how they are. Perception, how you perceive. But who you are at your core is spirit. It's beyond perception and it's beyond projection. So it says projection makes perception. The world you see is what you gave it, nothing more than that. But though it is no more than that, it is not less. Therefore, to you, it is important. It is the witness to your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition. And I think that just echoes what you were saying, Brandy, about you take care of the internal and your external will take care of itself. You free yourself from your own illusions, and the reality you see is going to start to change. And you're going to be able to see the dimension of heaven on earth, so to speak, and to see people in a way that only the Holy Spirit, only that God light can see.
Mm.
And that's what all these, that fun word, egregores, that's what all these egregores have been keeping us from, is seeing each other in the light of God. Because once you do that, you have no problems, you have no wars, you have no anything to fuss and worry about. You just get to be and expand, like Richard was saying about consciousness is here to expand and play and have fun and grow and
Mm.
learn. Let's get back to that. But first, we got to take all these systems down, starting on the inside. And
Yeah.
I think it begins with not caring what anybody thinks and just following the truth that leads you, because there's only one truth, and you will know that voice when it leads you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
So another like gatekeeper, I would say, is from my own personal knowledge and experience, is the Freemason group. They have always infiltrated the top levels of news media, government. They have their own government within every other government you can think of. Any government that doesn't have a Rothschild bank in it, there's a Mason government in it, in the ones that have that. So they determine what you know and what you don't know. They determine if the stock market goes up or if it goes down, or what wars they want to fight. They have an agenda inside their own government. They have a third world war penciled in as well, or written in pen ink, I should say, as well. And you know, another gatekeeper in modern times is the algorithms that we all are a part
Yeah.
of on these social media platforms. No matter what platform you're on, there is an algorithm that feeds you information that's different than my algorithm or Annelise's algorithm or Brandy's algorithm. And these algorithms, they can be tuned and tweaked, to what is allowed and what's not allowed. Most spiritual content is tuned down, which is, on purpose. A lot of people who like to model clothes and do a bunch of nonsense, that's tuned up for some reason. But I think y'all get my point. Like, these algorithms, they determine what you know and what you don't know. So that's why doing your own, maybe you see something on the algorithm that sparks your interest. All right, maybe write it down and go look at it. But, a lot of the times these algorithms determine what you see and what you know. And yeah, that's a gatekeeping mechanism in itself. And some of it could be wrong, mind you.
Yeah. Always question the narrative. That's
Yes.
the thing I have learned. Always question the narrative. And as a child, it's drilled into us to trust authority. Trust the experts. Let the people who are in authority, who are making the decisions, trust that they're know what's best for you. Like if the doctor prescribes something, take it. If the teacher tells you to do this or learn that, do it. And what I have come to see is that is so dangerous. Like, it's just like you've outsourced your entire life to these people who are mostly incompetent. And not to say that I'm not saying that all doctors are incompetent. That's not what I mean. But they're human beings just like everyone else. And you have to be your own advocate and do your own
Yeah.
research and know what are you putting into your body? What medical advice are you taking? Are you taking it in an informed way, or are you just blindly doing what someone is telling you to do? That's is scary because there's an agenda in a lot of these things. There's like the pharmaceutical industry is a
Yeah.
huge egregore. So in and of itself, the medical system, even if doctors are well-meaning, they have parameters and structures around them that tell them what they can do, what they can prescribe, how they practice medicine. So yeah, all of that needs to be taken into consideration. I guess what I'm saying is people need to think for themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
You're never taught how to do that in your school.
No.
And so
Oh, no.
people don't do it. I'll just say one more quick thing, but our son that I mentioned earlier, he asked me this week, why does it seem like so many people like don't know what's real, don't know what truth is, and why does it seem like I can only talk about this with certain people? And I went back to telling him, because you are born during the Great Awakening, baby. Like you're a Great Awakening baby, and you're seeing two realities split. And there's going to be people who are going to choose to go with the false one because it's more comfortable to them and their system. And then there's going to be the people where truth is more important to them, and they're okay to be uncomfortable if it means truth. And I said, that's the split you and your crew are going on, and you just have to stand strong and don't look to other people to believe what you believe in order to believe it. Know what you know what your inner spirit tells you, what your mom and dad that you can trust tell you. But most kids right now don't have parents probably talking to them like this. And so the kids are just getting programmed, but I really encourage you, if you're a parent, to talk to your kids about it, because they're Great Awakening babies. They need to know what's going on. How come these people at school don't know, and how come you guys know? Talk to them about it, what it means to be asleep, what it means to be awake. And Jesus talked about that too. So yeah. I just thought that was really interesting that he picked up on that. How come some people are asleep, some people are awake?
Yeah.
So we got to keep waking up our own perceptions. But we can't wake up other people. But
No.
when you wake up, it sends out ripples, and it matters.
Yeah. That's right.
That is right. He's a smart cookie. I want to say something off of what you were saying, Brandy, about the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
So my mom was a pharmaceutical rep, and I saw her every night studying what she's going to pitch to the doctors and what drugs are going to be her competition and all kinds of stuff like that. And that's, people don't understand that side of it. And another part of that is the pharmaceutical reps, they go into these doctors' offices and pitch the drug that they need to sell to them for them to write. And if the doctor writes X amount, like, let's just say, this is something that's logged in my brain from like 20 years ago. If a doctor writes Actonel, like 20,000 scripts or something like that, the doctor gets a $10,000 bonus. And all that kind of stuff is riddled throughout the medical industry, and people don't even know that. It's like that dude chose that drug to put you on because he's going to get a bonus, not because that other one's better for you, but he's going to get a bonus that's going to put a pool in because it's just the incentive to write that other drug.
Right.
I just thought that was so messed up back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom had to
Yeah.
leave the industry because of that, because it was just it was just too much for her she did one day she was just like, "I can't even understand this anymore. I have to leave,"
It's unethical. It just really
Yeah,
is unethical. And, people aren't getting what's best for them. They're getting what's being pushed through an agenda.
exactly. They're
And
lo
yeah,
they're locking marijuana users up. That fixes all the stuff that they're pushing legally, which is insane.
right. Yeah. Yeah. It's scary. And, also, people want to say, oh, well, this study shows. Well, my question is always, well, who's funded that study?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Because
all the
those
money.
studies have a funny way of, having results that mirror what those people in power want you to believe. Even with dog food, like I'm a dog
Yeah,
lover. I raised dogs for years, and you have to be careful with dog food. And there
Yeah.
are certain huge companies that are egregores in themselves that I would not
Mhm.
purchase anything that they're peddling, but they have all of these studies showing that their food is this or that. And I'm like, but who's funding those studies? They are funding those studies. They are in control of the results of
exactly.
those studies. And so you're not getting an unbiased, a review of
Mm-mm.
their product. And the same thing goes for these drugs, these pharmaceuticals that are out there on the market. There are studies being done, but who's paying for those studies? That's always the good question to ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole system. The whole system is just
It's a
yeah.
little overwhelming, like
Yeah.
to just probably, especially, can you imagine being a first time listener to our podcast and then you're just hearing all of this and it's like, whoa, so everything, really? Everything? Yeah,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah,
Everything.
everything.
It
Um,
really is.
but I want to offer a little like poetic encouragement if you're that person.
Yeah.
This won't be long. Y'all don't worry. They're looking at me like, oh Lord.
No.
Um, well, what we're talking about, it's not just the external systems. It's the inherited belief in separation itself, the idea that you're separate from truth, separate from source, and separate from your own knowing. And that belief is the original gatekeeper.
Mm.
And once you begin to see it, once you just become aware of it, you don't have to fight the system, any system. You don't have to tear anything down. You simply stop outsourcing your perception and you return to awareness, to presence, and to truth that is not handed to you, but remembered. And from there, no gate can hold you because you are no longer asking permission to see. And I just thought that was really beautiful. I did not write
Yeah.
that, but that's it. It's just the original gatekeeper is that you're separate from source, that you're separate
That's
from
it.
God.
That's it. Yeah.
That's kind of it. So
That's when
once
our
you
trouble
remember,
begins.
yeah, once you
Yeah.
remember you are in the mind of God, you are dreaming in the mind of God, you are the light of God. Well, now the systems will just burn down for your own perception and that's going to fix everything for you. And if we can
Yeah.
each and every one of us have that awakening,
You can move mountains.
we move
Yeah.
the mountains. Yeah.
And
That's
if you
right.
can move mountains, you can damn sure move a system. And that system will fall down, and
Yeah.
that's why they keep it from you.
Yeah. 100%. They don't want you to know. They want you to feel that you are separate. It's a very us versus them narrative that keeps people fighting against the evil other out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at the the landscape of what's going on in the world right now. Just if you watch the news, I don't, but
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
that's the narrative over and over and over again. That's all
Yeah.
you'll hear. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the fix, ironically, the fix actually is what they taught us in church, but not the way they taught us. John 3:16. I had this revelation this week. So the verse goes, "For God so loved the world, he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever should believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life." And we're taught, y'all know how we're taught it goes. But how it really is, esoterically, is the cure for this. To realize that God loved the world so much that when he created creation, he put his own essence into creation, his one and only Son, his one and only self, and that whoever believes that they are that essence will not perish in this world of form, but we'll have everlasting life at all times. We'll live in heaven on earth. That's what John 3:16, I believe, really means, and that's the ticket out. It's just believing that you are exactly who you are.
That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, do you have any closing thoughts before we close up this episode today?
I feel like I've already said my closing thoughts pretty
Yeah.
forcefully.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. I think the whole episode was kind of a closing thoughts. We were just kind of a punchy episode. Yeah.
Necessary. It's necessary. Thank y'all for
Yeah.
listening. And
Yeah.
please share it with your friends and just know that we're
Yeah.
here with you on your journey through this
Yeah, ask us
unraveling.
questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, before we close out, we do want to thank all of our listeners for your ongoing support and encouragement. It truly means everything to us. And if you're enjoying this episode, please help us out by subscribing on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you stream podcasts. Follow us on socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Also, the Burrow, our monthly Patreon gathering, is a place to connect and engage these rabbit hole topics in a safe space. Bring your questions, insights, and curiosity and join us the first Sunday of every month on Zoom from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. The links are in the show notes. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of Transcending the Rabbit Hole. As always, cosmic blessings and peace.
Down with all the lies that he's told. Does the gloom and doom of nightly news haunt your dreams? So you scroll instead of sleep, 'cause distraction is key. But as long as there is still the sun up in the sky, I can choose to live on the sunny side. It's somewhere between burying my head in the sand and falling down the rabbit hole again. To the system, now there's power to reclaim. But as long as there's a heart beating in my chest, I will cling to hope that's true. I will